studio now from Whiteside County, Dave Harrison. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning.
Always enjoy visiting with you. You've always got some great topics to talk about, and you want to begin with a thank you.
Yeah, the Quad City Inn fishermen folks had me down to do a presentation. It's been a little over a month now, and it's because they heard me on the radio. And so, once again, local radio coming through.
There you go.
And so I just want to say thank you for, they were very gracious. Had some really good discussions for about a half an hour, 40 minutes.
So what you all talk about?
Well, it's a fishing group, and I like to fish for smallmouth bass. Now, I know you and I, the last time we were here, we were talking about you had your family fishing
Catfish,
trip, right?
We just catfish, right.
Right. And I fished for smallmouth all my life. I've gone up to Canada and fished for them where I was born, down around the Vermilion River in Illinois. It was a fantastic smallmouth fishery. And I told them, you can tell how tough a fish is by the condition of the water that they live in. And I won't mention the name of the manufacturer. In fact, I think they're out of business by now. But there was a fertilizer plant right above where I used to fish. And at 6 o'clock at night when they closed that factory, there was a little stream that flowed past the factory, and there'd be this green substance that came out of the factory right into the river. It looked like St. Patrick's Day every day. And those fish lived through it. And I think it was the fertilizer. It's probably phosphorus fertilizers that they were washing their vats out. And this was a long, long time ago, folks, so keep that in mind. But those fish still stayed in that area. They did glow when you took them out of the water, though. No, they didn't.
And do they have three eyes?
Yeah, sometimes look like an episode of The Simpsons or something. But I still remember that as a kid. But I'd go back to that same spot every time, and there'd still be fish there and be very, very healthy. So that tells you how tenacious a smallmouth bass is.
I guess so. Dove season.
Yeah, dove season started September 1st in Illinois. I used to shoot a lot of them, and anymore I'm usually working. Sometimes I'm guiding people. But this time on day 2, which is usually kind of bad because the birds have been shot at, and it had been cool. And normally when the weather gets cool, especially if you get a north wind, the birds take flight and they migrate. But it was pretty good, and I actually got 9 of them. They're in the freezer. We haven't had a chance to eat them yet, but we're going to. And there's still a lot of birds around. And I think they're migrants out of probably Canada, Wisconsin, and Minnesota.
So 9 dove, that'd be like an appetizer, right?
Oh, that's enough for 2 people. Because it's a real rich meat.
Yes.
There's not a lot on it, but there's a strip on either side of the breastbone that's the sweetest game meat you've ever had. I mean, it's incredible, and it's about half a bite. But, oh, gosh, is it good.
Early goose.
Yeah, early goose in Illinois, at least, has started, and it ends, I believe, the 15th. That was instituted because of the problems of non-migratory Canada geese in the suburbs. And even out here, they ravage golf courses. They leave little reminders of them being around everywhere. But the bad thing is they don't just snip plants off, they pull them out of the ground. So if you got a golf course and you got 300 or 400 geese that are flying in every day and feeding, your greens and your fairways are going to look pretty bare after a while. So that's why that was instituted. It was put in place so the migratory flock wouldn't be affected. That's why it starts in September. And if you got a good spot, I work on one farm over by Fulton, and I know there was a mowed oat field, and I bet one day there was close to 300 geese in it. It was amazing. They must have come from everywhere just to hit that field.
Their numbers are incredible.
Oh, yeah, and it's strange because it was a real conservation success story. Most of those are giants, and for the most part, up until, I don't know the exact date, but probably sometime in the 80s, there were very few giant Canada geese in Illinois. So IDNR and Fish and Wildlife got together and found a fairly sizable flock up around Minneapolis. And Illinois traded Minnesota something for those geese, and it just kind of exploded from there. And to the point now where they have to have an early season because they become a problem.
And they can be aggressive. I've been on a golf course with geese.
Yeah, you don't want to be out there real early when they're either on the nest or they've got those young ones, those goslings, and they will defend them. They'll whack you with their wingtips, which are really, really sharp. or they'll get you with their beaks, one of the two. Yeah, it's
Either one's not good.
No, I've had other stories of people telling me that too. They've had to literally use their golf clubs to keep the geese away from them.
Yeah.
So,
bird feeders.
yeah, it's time. If you haven't cleaned your bird feeder for the season, clean it out. It's going to be getting a lot of use. Those birds are really hungry, and they're going to start migrating very soon. So keep them filled, which reminds me, I need to get some bird feed. Same with the suet feeders. I live in a house with cedar siding, and if I do not have suet cakes out, I'm reminded of it about 5:30 in the morning. They start pecking on the house, and I've literally had to take caulk and fill holes in because I let them go too long.
Oh my goodness.
It's something else. But as long as you have suet out, normally there's not a problem.
CRP cleanup,
Yeah.
please.
One of the things I deal with a lot are CRP fields, and normally it's landowners calling me or clients that I've already been established with calling me and saying, I got this letter from USDA that says if I don't get my field cleaned up, they're going to boot me out of the program and take all the payments. So if you have especially a grass field, whether it be cool season, brome, timothy, or native grass, if there's trees growing up in it or brush, get it cleaned out. You're going to be checked 3 times during your contract period, and eventually somebody's going to come out and probably write you up for a citation. And they'll give you a certain amount of time to get it cleaned up, but if you don't, out of the program you go, and you're probably going to owe them some money anyway.
What was the purpose of CRP?
CRP was designed originally 2 reasons. One, to control the amount of grain that's produced on marginal ground, and the other reason is for conservation purposes, wildlife habitat, erosion control, pollinator establishment. But it was, early on it was more of a commodity control. But and it's a great program, don't get me wrong, but you have to go by their standards. And a lot of times the folks that are managing the programs, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble by saying this, but I'll say it anyway, that are managing the programs at a countywide level don't have the experience, but they have a manual they go by. And if that field's not like what that manual says, you're going to be in trouble. So make sure you know what you're getting into, make sure you know what the rules are, and you'll be fine. But if you let a field get brushy, look out, because eventually you'll be checked and you're going to have a problem. So,
Visiting with Dave Harrison of Whiteside County. Tree stands.
yeah, it's that time. Archery season in Illinois starts October 1, and I think Iowa's pretty close to that too, if I remember right. So if you haven't got your tree stands up, get them up soon. Be cautious of the poison ivy. When I was bow hunting, every year I'd get poison ivy, and this is visuals on a radio program, it's not good, but I'd get it on the inside of my arms where I'd be climbing the tree and gripping the tree and not seeing a vine. So be cautious of that. The poison ivy is still very, very active. The leaves are still juicy. The vines are full of sap. So, but get your tree stands up. And I know a lot of guys don't really start hunting until the end of October, so you got a little time yet.
Okay. Cover crop methods.
Yeah, I know I've been talking about cover crops a lot for our farmer friends out there. The one method that's becoming, at least in Whiteside County, kind of a cool thing is drones. There's several guys that have got very large drones where they can put 3, 4, 5 bushels of rye seed on or other cover crops and fly them over the field and put the seed down that way. A lot of that goes into bean stubble, and the beans are starting to turn. I don't know if you noticed, a lot of the soybean fields are starting to get yellow leaves on them, which means the leaves are going to start dropping pretty quick. So,
I played Sting's Field of Gold.
Yeah, I heard that. That's great.
Yeah.
That was a good song.
Yeah.
So anyway, the drone method's a good way to do it. If you want to wait a little bit longer and you're using rye, harvest the beans, you can drill it or spread it on. Some guys use helicopters and airplanes too, but the drones, I don't know what the cost is. I haven't checked that out, but it seems like an intriguing way of putting that stuff on.
Yeah, I guess so. My goodness. Technology.
It is.
Fall legume? Did I
legumes.
say that right? Okay.
Yeah, legumes. That's just clover and alfalfa. And we're in a seeding period now that if you are either putting a hayfield out or some CRP, you can do it now, but I wouldn't wait too much longer. Our next seeding period would be once everything goes dormant and it's nice and cold out. And then you have a chance to do a what's called a dormant seeding. But you're still within a window, a very short window, where you can plant that stuff and it may actually still grow. The problem right now, I looked at the weather forecast, and I see you have the weather on your screen over there. There's not a whole lot of rain in the forecast for the next week at least, maybe 10 days. So that is a problem. So you might want to check the rainfall, because it doesn't do any good to put that stuff in and then have it sit on top for 10 days. More than likely, you're not going to have a very good stand.
Order native seed, soil, type, and species.
Yes, I'm going to give Blake at the SWCD office a little love this morning. And he'll probably hate me for it because you get all kinds of phone calls. But he's got all kinds of native grasses and plants available, or I should say flowers. He's also got trees, stuff like that. But before you order, make sure you sit down with somebody and check out the soil so you can match the plants to the soil. The type of environment they're going to go into, whether it's wet or dry, or a mix, and the species that'll fit in those particular spots. So
that kind of leads into your next point there,
it does.
Doesn't it?
Yep. With trees, we're getting into a fall planting time, and I know Blake has tree and fish orders out right now, and you still got a few days to get those in to him. A lot of people just use either seedlings or large potted stock. Some people call those RPMs, but you can also do direct seeding with acorns and nuts. It works really well. If you're going to include white oak in your planting, though, and you're collecting acorns, those need to be collected, soaked overnight if you're not going to plant them immediately, and then put in the ground. Because what will happen, the acorn breaks and the radical root comes out in the fall. So if you wait on that, a lot of times the seed will actually die because that radical can't find any soil to keep it going. So white oaks have to be collected and for sure planted in the fall. The other species you might be able to put in a cooler and plant next spring, but I wouldn't wait.
How long would it take for a tree to grow from an acorn?
You'd be surprised how fast they grow. Usually within 10 years, you have to go in and start thinning them. They might be anywhere from 5 to 15 foot tall, depending on the species.
Okay.
And it's a fascinating way to do it because, after about 4 or 5 years, it looks like a jungle out there. I mean, there's trees everywhere. And then in that 10th year, you start doing your selection. Okay, here's a good tree. I'm going to start giving it room, and you take some other trees out around it. But it's a cool way of doing it, especially if you got a lot of deer.
And if you're young.
And if you're young, or you have grandkids or kids that can do it for you. Yeah,
I got
you're
a
right.
project for you in 10 years.
I know, exactly.
Migration movement.
Yeah, it's starting. If you have hummingbird feeders out, you notice they've really been going crazy feeding. And those little species have a tendency to move early. So right now you got hummingbirds getting ready to leave. There's a lot of blue-winged teal coming through. The river, they use it as a migratory corridor. And, some of those other birds will be leaving here pretty quick, too. And you can tell in September the pace of the feeding starts increasing, and they're just stocking in as many calories as they can. So the next time, hopefully we get some rain here, the next time we have a storm coming out of Canada, we have a northwest or north wind, you're going to be amazed at how many birds are going to be flowing through this area. Because that first front that pushes through with a big northwest wind, they're right on it.
It's amazing how many miles they go.
Oh, yeah. Hummingbird will go all the way down to Texas, maybe even to Mexico. And those little guys have wings that are, maybe an inch wide, at the very most. And, they just buzz their way down, and they follow the bloom. They keep going south until, they'll hit another patch of flowers. They'll feed there. When those flowers dry up, they just keep moving south. So they're neat birds.
We're getting through all our points here.
We're getting there. And
Yeah.
We're almost on time, too.
And we're doing great. Cover crops, trees, and fish.
Yeah. If you look on the SWCD, Whiteside's SWCD website, the newsletter's out, and it gives a summary of what's available. So Blake has he did have some cover crops. I don't know if that's still available or not. You might want to call him on that. But I know the tree and fish orders are still available. He has all kinds of deer protection things, tree tubes, spray-on stuff, synthetic mulch. And there's also some tools there that you can borrow. We talked about the acorn harvest. He has 2 harvesters You said golf. I don't know if you remember those old push things that would pick up golf balls. Well, there's 2 at this office that will pick up acorns. And I know I've done it in my backyard and taken like bushels of this stuff and given it to landowners to use in the plantings. So that's all available. You can call. I'm going to try to get this number right. Call Blake at 815-772-2124, extension 3.
Very good. Now, we will visit with you early in October. The second Tuesday will be October 8th.
I will put that down.
Write that down, October 8th. And what are you going to look to in October?
Pumpkins.
There you go. Dave, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Yep.
You're listening to AM 1340 KROS.